All right, so this is going to be part two of working in AutoCAD, and I'm just continuing from where I left off. So let's get into layers. We're going to do annotation and text probably next week. Same for blocks, but we're going to go over layers, properties, and then probably cover some of these options down here, and then get paper space as well. So layers. Right now, if you click on this little drop down right here, you can see that there's just a 0 layer. This is your default layer. You never want to stop working on your default layer. You always want to work on your default layer and then move things to other layers. To actually manage them, there's this big layer properties button right here. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And we're going to get, where's the grabber? Right here. So we have this right here. And what these are is this is the status, so if it's displayed or not, don't worry about that because we just have this right here. And then we have all these different, oh, actually, let's add some layers first. So we have different things here that determine what's going on with the layer. And so this is a really nice place to manage all of these all at once. To create a new layer, there's the little sunburst guy right here. So we'll click on that to create a new layer, and we'll name this. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create 3 layers here. So I'm going to call this one blue. I'll create another one. We'll call it red. And we'll create another one, call it green. And then, again, I never touch my default layer. I always leave the default layer set. But you can double click on it to change which layer you're actively working on. But again, don't. So then we have a couple settings here. So you can see if the layer's on, we can turn the layers on individually. We'll do some stuff and then we'll show what's going on there. We have the freeze. And the freeze is specific to viewports. So you don't ever want to freeze anything here when we're in the model space, which is this black area, right, that we're actually drawing in. We'll get into freezes when we do viewports probably next week as well. The next one is lock. So this will lock the layer so that it can't be edited. Plot will determine if the layer can be plotted. So if whatever is on my blue layer, for example, I don't want to print, I'd click on that. If I wanted, yeah, so it's kind of hard to show now because I don't really have anything to show. But I have had students come up to me like banging their head against the wall. Hey, for whatever reason, I'm trying to print, and this whole layer of all my furniture isn't showing up. And it was because they had somehow come in here and either checked the plot or the freeze and basically effectively disabled their layer. The next one is the color, and this one's pretty self-explanatory. Your default here is going to be white, and then when we switch to paper space, it just changes to black. I've never understood it, why they do that, but I don't know. That's just AutoCAD for you. So I'm going to click on the color right here, and it's going to give me this super classic Windows like layout, showing me what colors I can pick. I can choose individual ones. I can enter a code here. I've got the whole menu here. There are certain people who like this. So if I want to get, kind of like a brightish blue, I could do that and then assign that color to that layer. Same with the red. Again, I could come in here, choose a red, and same here, choose a green. Why would you want to do this? It helps it organize your layers, and we'll get into that kind of once we have a floor plan we're working with next class. But you end up with a whole bunch of stuff in this drawing, right? This is the way that we should be working with AutoCAD is that you should have a floor plan and just one floor plan. And then everything that's in there, your dimensions, your room labels, your furniture, your electrical labeling, your plumbing, all that, everything's going to be on top of itself. And so what you would do is organize things on different layers. So then, and we can actually close this now. And so you would organize things on different layers, and then once you've, say we've got this right here, let me draw a couple things in here. Actually, hey, let's do a move copy. Multiple. Should I hit M? There we go. So if I just place a whole bunch of these around, so let's just pretend that these are objects of various types here in this. So I can assign these to the blue layer. I can grab these, and then again, to assign them to the layer, you just click on this drop down and then click on the layer. So if I move these off to these other layers as I'm working, especially once I get to a point where I have, like, it really gets kind of complex and I've got a bunch of stuff going on, hey, maybe I don't need the blue layer here, so I can just turn that blue layer off, right? Maybe this is part of the red layer. So it helps me organize stuff, but it also helps me kind of minimize what's being shown on the screen at any point in time, so I can work on stuff without too much clutter. Oops, keep the layer on. So again, I will repeat, continue working on this zero layer, and then move stuff off to layers. And the reason why is, let's say I'm working on this set of lines right here, right? Except that I drew them on the blue layer, but then they're all still, yeah, I group them. And then I move the group to the green layer, but then I turn the blue layer off. Oh no, it didn't do it. Anyway, I've seen cases where something has been assigned to two different layers, basically something, you know, I think it's a block issue. But I've seen cases where something is drawn on one layer, moved, and then moved to another layer, and in the case where either of those two layers is turned off, it disappears. So someone would turn off their windows and their furniture would disappear. I don't know how to reproduce that as a bug right now real quick, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. So basically you just want to make sure that you're constantly, yeah, it's got to be a block issue. So make sure you're always working on this zero layer, and then once you've got something done, move it to another layer and keep yourself on the zero layer. Okay, so next is the properties. And while we can assign colors and do different things there, this is kind of serves as an override, right? So if I want to change the layer color here, I can keep my layer. So if this is, like, for example, my blue layer is, well, let's rename them. So let's say my blue layer is furniture. My green layer is, or sorry, my red layer is plumbing. And my green layer is electrical. Then let's say that I've got something here that is technically furniture, but maybe it's something else. So this is an override, basically. Think of this, you want to always be working from the most generic to the most specific. So set things by their proper layer, and then if you need to, come over here and redesignate this with a specific by layer override, right? So this shows up as the proper layer, but it's overwritten. If you want to get back, you can click on the drop down and return it to by layer or by block, which yeah, it's definitely block where that thing was screwed up. I'll show that in blocks later. You also have your line thicknesses. So one of the things that I think you guys may have heard one of the students from the other year coming by the classroom the other day and asking this question is, we put down this and then offset, let's do 3 feet. Multiple, so let me just create a whole bunch of lines here. So there's the line thickness override here, or line weight. And that is something that we can set here, both the line type and the line weight in the layer properties. But sometimes you just want to have, like, oh, this one line needs to be set. And I don't want to create another layer. Well, then you can change that. So before I do this, let me copy this over. Okay, so line weights vary based on the thickness here. we can start just going really thin, and as you increase in size, one of the things you're going to notice is that you're not really seeing it here on the screen, right? So let me jump up. Oops. Let me grab some of these thicker ones, and the thing I always get is, oh, I'm not seeing that displayed on the screen here. Do. Okay, I definitely bit off more than I could chew. So let me switch to the page layout right here, and then zoom in, and I need to enable this. So to show the line weights, we type LW, and then that opens up this menu right here, and we can check display line weight. So I can choose that, and now you can see here's the actual thicknesses that these would kind of appear here in Paperspace. It does apply it here too. You can also do LW display, and then it's going to give us an option for on or off. This is just a shortcut for that pop-up menu that I just brought with LW, right? So I just turned it off there. So if you're ever drawing your lines and you're like, hey, these aren't showing up right, LW display on, and now you can see they're drawn to the appropriate thickness. By the way, this is Paperspace here. We'll get there in a minute. The other thing is going to be the line type. Right now, it's just got continuous, but if you click on other, you can load in a whole bunch of different types of lines right here. This is how you would get dashed lines imported in, because you don't want to have to sit there and like manually do that. So if I was to load this one in, let's grab this whole chunk right here, set it to 2x, and again, it's not going to show, and I always get confused on which one to do. Okay, yeah, I had to look it up. It's LT scale, so it's one of those commands where it's like you set it once and configure it in your thing. So anyway, when you place these lines down, if I choose that, so LT scale, you guys right now have 1, so you aren't going to see those, right? If I zoom in, you might be able to see this, but this line is, first of all, it's going to snap completely somewhere else. That is approximately 1 inch. Yeah, so that's a bit small, especially if you were to take this into Paperspace. You're not going to see that because it's so small. So let's see. Typically I just do 12, so I'll do LT scale, and then we'll do 12. Now it shows it there, and then the next problem is we usually don't see it here as well. So then we'll do PSLT scale, which is Paperspace line type scale. And this one is on or off. So we'll want that on, and then, oh, it's just because of the size, I think. What is this? Ugh, quarter inch. Let's see, enter. Go back to quarter. How big is this? What am I working with right here? What is this area? Ooh, 800 feet. That's too big. Let me draw something up so this kind of scales back. Okay, so we want to do, we have those set. Yeah, okay. So we do line type, and then show details. Use Paperspace for scaling. So I think we actually wanted to do PSLT, yeah, because that's PSLT scale 0. I've got a guide, I'll pass it out to you guys. LT scale 64. There we go. So then LT scale, scale 32. So eventually, you just basically find, and I've got a guide that walks you through this, but you find out the scale that kind of works for the lines that you're using, because naturally all the lines have kind of their own scaling algorithm that they use. Um, and then that just reminded me right here of something I want to point out. Guarantee every semester I get this problem, and that is that someone zoomed in on a viewport, which is what this is right here. We'll talk about viewports in a second. Um, Zoomed in too far, like right here, and typically when you're working with them, you want to be able to see the outside of them, which is this border right here. You would double click inside of them, and now I can move around inside of there and manipulate things and whatnot, and then double click to get outside. What happens is someone will zoom in too far, double click, do whatever it is they need to do inside of here, and then now they can't get out. So if you find yourself in this situation, P space, which is switches you to paper space, and then now you can get out. The alternative right here is that there's this little model tag right here. If you click on that, you can also get out of. Excuse me. You can get out of that viewport. So when we're talking about line weights, line thicknesses, all these configurations, remember, you want to try and set these settings here first. So you should ideally have your layer configured for the thing that it's doing. And then from there you would, so you set your line type, set your line weight. Then once you're done, if you have any exceptions and you don't want to have like an entire other layer for just one or two or three lines, then you would select those individual lines and then change them individually based on that. Okay. Let me see. What else did we want to go over? Oh, these things down here. So right now we have the grid on right now, and then you can turn this on and off. If we're in paper space, or in paper space and we're getting ready to print, that's one of the first things you want to do is double click in this viewport and then turn that grid off so that you don't have that grid there. I think it just looks cleaner and it keeps it here, right? These viewports are basically a window from your paper space here. So if I can delete this, I'll type viewport and it'll give me this dialog. Often you can do kind of different setups. So if I choose just for equal, hit OK, I can click and drag to specify the corners. And now you can see I've got 4 windows into basically the same space. So if I want to zoom this around, I want to show that part of that drawing. I want to show this part. I want to show that. Oops, get out of there. And I want to show that. So there I can have 4 different viewports on the same page. And then, again, if I wanted to turn off the grid in each of these, I would have to double click on it individually. The smarter way to do that would get out of there. Would typically be to just have one viewport, configure it correctly, and then I just like copying viewports around so that I don't have to deal with them or deal with changing all the settings. Oops, that wasn't a copy. This is a copy. Yep. So that it lets you inherit some of the settings in case you had like a specific scale and different things going on. So let me zoom out too, and I'll show you guys some of the freeze settings that I had mentioned earlier. So there's that. There's that. Okay, so I've got this here. So if I go into this viewport right here, so if I turn off electrical, you can see that the green circles just disappeared everywhere, right? I don't have them here, I don't have them here, I don't have them here. If I turn them back on, they're there. What freeze does is it freezes it in just this viewport, right? It is a viewport specific thing. So if I freeze it here, the green circles are gone here, but they're still here and they're still here. So this is how you would go through and filter your drawings to show only the things that you need to show. So if I'm in this one, maybe this one I don't want to show the red. So I would freeze the red in here, but everything else still shows up. And if I go back to my model, it's still here. What you want to avoid is being in model space and then freezing them here, because if you freeze them here, they're, well, wait a second, what did I just freeze? Electrical? Yeah, so electrical shouldn't be showing up in any of them, even if it's unfrozen in that layer. So no, I don't see any greens, so that worked correct. So don't ever freeze from paper space here, or from model space. Only freeze in a viewport. Another thing you can do with viewports, let me actually create a viewport layer and we'll get a bit deeper into this. So viewports, this is something that I like doing, and it's just a way that I work, is anytime I have something that I don't want to print, I give it the ugliest fuchsia color I can. And the reason why is because if I'm ever working through something, if I have notes or whatever, I've got some weird test thing I drew, and then I move this over to this viewport layer here, which we'll use in a second. Anytime I see that fuchsia, I know I need to hide that. And one thing you can do with viewports is viewport. And we'll do single. Another option, previously I drew the area to fill in, but you also have the option here of fit. So I hit F and enter, and it's just going to fill in the whole area here. So I can turn off my grid there. And the other thing I can do is I can take the viewport right here and I can move the viewport to a viewport layer. And then I can turn off the viewport layer. And this is the one layer that I typically always have off. And what that does is it gets rid of that border that was around this. You do have to kind of find the viewport when you want to work with it. So if I've got this right here, it's kind of like, right, you can't select it because it's hidden. But grab that, move that there, and then we can hide the viewport layer. So I like having kind of a dump layer of things that I don't want to show up in print. And so it's usually a layer that I will have as a fuchsia. Something that helps with sorting is, nope, stay on 0. If you put the little squigglies at the front and then sort, you usually get them above the 0 layer right here. So if there's something that I really want to keep an eye on, I'll add squigglies to it. So if I'm doing this with electrical and then resort, I've got my squigglies at the top here. All right. So anytime I'm getting ready to print or whatever, I know, okay, I need to make sure that these are off, kill these. Or in the case of, printing, don't print them. So there's different settings here that you can change. Keep an eye on them. Try not to let them mess you up. But again, it's a personal preference of just putting the viewports on a viewport layer and then hiding that layer. It looks a little bit cleaner, especially once you have a whole bunch of elevations in your drawing. So back, long tangent to get back to here. So let me go back to model space. So we have, that was the grid. We want to keep the grid on. Well, I prefer keeping the grid on for here, but some people like turning it off. This is the snap. The snap mode is like super annoying in terms of like, let's turn it on first. Turn on grid snap. Okay. So let me see what the settings are. Snap settings. Oh, it's super small. That's why. You can do stuff like set it to like 3 foot, 3 foot. And then when you're drawing, it's going to snap to that. So I've seen students accidentally configure their program to like snap to weird measurements like this. It's going to be F9 to turn that on or off, and then you can right click on it and choose snap settings and change these. But typically this is a tool that I will leave off. You can also change your grid spacing if you wanted to, but yeah, I typically just leave the grid snap off. It's more annoying than anything else. It rarely does any good. This next option here is going to be the ortho mode, orthogonal projection, or whatever, orthogonal drawing. It hard locks you in. So right now we did this setting with this one that lets you snap every couple degrees, every 45 degrees, I think. When you turn this one on, it's hard snapping you to a 90-degree angle right here. And I don't think it's got any settings. It's just sort of on or off. And you can't have both of these on at the same time. So if you have polar on, that's what you're going to want. Again, you have the settings here. We can go in and do like crazy small adjustments. So if I want 5 degrees, it's going to snap every 5 degrees here. Or you could just turn it off and be a rebel and never have any tool assist, which is crazy. So this one I always have on, and then I typically just go with kind of like a 45. If there's anything that doesn't need a 45, it's probably something that I should be typing out manually. Like I mentioned in the previous video, maybe it's something that goes 20 feet this way at an angle of 17 degrees or something, right? In the event that I need it to do that, I'm going to do it through that setting, right? Or through a manual typing. Otherwise, I'm just going to snap it to an angle or freehand it. Let's see. Don't turn that on. Um, this is the snap referencing. Is that next tool? So again, you see that I've got all these different things going on around here. If I turn this off, I think it should stop doing that. Show snapping reference lines. Oh, is this the one that for intersect? No. What is this one doing? Object snap. Did I click? Come on. Yeah, no, this should be fine. Yeah, so anyway, these two I typically have on all the time. This is a nice shortcut to basically this panel, which has all the same settings. Or you can right click and it gets you to the same place. These are pretty much all the ones that I would want to have on, is just the endpoint, midpoint, center, intersection, extension. Yeah, that's it. I typically, the rest of them kind of get in the way, and sometimes you even have to turn like maybe an intersection or something. No, yeah, no, I think I typically have all those on, and that's about it. That setting works for me. Um, we will get into annotation objects later. They're kind of a complex subject, so go ahead and leave this at 1 to 1 for now. When I do show you guys how to create annotative objects, it'll be to create like labels and things for your drawings for scale and um, uh, labeling in your documentation and creating elevation markers and section cut markers. Super handy to have. We'll create those as part of the blocks demo. But for now, go ahead and just leave these settings as is. And this is just a generic setting for settings. I think, yeah, that's all we have right there. And then, again, we already kind of jumped into it, but here's paper space. If you want to change the size of a page, you would right click on the page and choose Page Setup Manager right here. You would go to Modify, and then usually you have to set the printer. Usually DWG to PDF is good. That gives you a good list of page sizes. So if I select ArcD here, it gives me a 24 by 36 or 36 by 24 in this case. Page area, go ahead and hit OK. And now I have a larger page to work with. And usually that's kind of step one of starting a documentation. Delete that layer. You can rename the pages here, so this will just be sheet A101. And then as I need more pages, I can either create new, and it should inherit from the previous page. Nope, looks like I'd have to do something else. So more typically, I just duplicate what I've got. So move or copy, and then create a copy, move to end, okay, and that creates a second sheet. There's a shortcut that doesn't work there for rename, but if you're in like the layer properties, sorry, OCD's taking over here a little bit. I'm jumping around a bit, but if you hit F2 here, it's a little bit better than like doing a slow click. I think that's how a lot of people end up accidentally switching layers. If you just hit F2 on the keyboard, it'll bring you into a rename mode in a lot of things in Windows. Not here though. You'll have to go in and manually change this to A102. Move or copy, move to end, create a copy, go, and then this is how you would basically go through and just create all your sheets. So yeah, this gives me a couple different sheets, and then I would just clear out whatever's in here. Control A, delete. pretty fancy. And then from here, I would do viewport, single, F to fit, and double click, remove, double click out, and then position whatever it is I need to here. So, what did we cover? We did layers and some stuff with that. We did the properties here, line types and some other things, kind of covered that, and the options here. So that's all we're going to be covering, I think, for the first class, and I think most of this week. I think this demo probably would have taken you guys either end of first class or part of second. Next video, I will basically start walking through how to build a floor plan, my recommended way. That's going to transition into next week, where you will continue building the floor plan, and we'll cover things like elevations, section cuts, and doing all the other things. So I'll see you guys in class.